today we have someone who I admire, someone who I look to, who empowers me, someone who, and I will tell the story shortly about how my life was changed when I actually found out that he would be my host father. But before we get into all of that good stuff, I do need to introduce to our viewers who are tuning in for the first time who Robert J. Brown is. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert J. Brown is the president and founder of BNC International. This is the oldest African-American owned PR, public relation, crisis response company that has worked with people from all walks of life. He has influenced, the civil rights movement in South Africa, in the United States. He has influenced the apartheid movement in South Africa. He has worked with Nelson Mandela, someone who is known and will be known for all time to come. And it is such an honor for me to share this platform with you, and especially after having grown and having seen you, in spaces that are not on platforms like this. And what I really admire about your character, my grandmother did teach me that, the way to analyze a man of great integrity is through the content of his character. And the reason I admire who you are is because you are the same person that you are right now on this stage, that you are when you're making pork chops for breakfast, that you are when you're making grits, that you are when we're sitting with people like Miss Winfrey, the same consistent person of integrity. And it's always so amazing to know that following all these accomplishments, you always bring it down to spirituality, believing in God, and the way you were raised by your grandmother. And so thank you so much for joining this platform and agreeing to be interviewed individually. We appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, thank you. My first question is, first of all, we need to congratulate Dr. Brown to our viewers. He won the 2016, the highest state honor that one can receive possible from any state. And so you received the North Carolina State Award. And, again, so significant for little Bobby, who grew up in High Point, in poverty, with his grandmother helping the community to work his way up all the way to a state honor. And so congratulations on that. Thank you. Just to give our audience an idea of your career and the sort of leadership achievements that you've had, I have to mention that you are the 1990 Horatio Alger Award winner. You currently hold 10 honorary doctorate degrees and 6 National Achievement Awards. You have been honored as a distinguished, you received the Distinguished American Award for Horatio Alger. You've worked with Martin Luther King, you've worked with Nelson Mandela, and there's so many good things. And I want to know, if we take all those wonderful roles and responsibility and we just put them aside and we say, who is Bob Brown? What would your response, how can you help us know who you are apart from the roles and all these awards, and can we see ourselves in who little Bobby is?
Well, I'd like to think that I'm the same little Bobby that my grandmother raised over on Commerce Street, about 15 blocks away from here.
Wow.
Because I still stick to the same principles of life that I grew up with. Treat everybody right.
Right.
Try to do the right thing. No matter what happens, no matter where you are, what you're doing, make sure you're reaching out and helping somebody else every day.
Wow.
Try to do that with your life. And my grandma, who raised me, taught me that if you do that, everything's going to be all right in the end.
Everything will work out.
Everything is going to work out. And it's difficult sometimes because people will treat you with some sadness and meanness and everything else, but you just go on and turn that over to God and let Him handle it, because you can't handle it.
You can't do it by yourself.
You can't do it by yourself. You have to
So even after the 10 honorary doctorates, even after the state honor, you still know that there is God and that you can't do it by yourself.
I can't do it by myself. I've never tried to do it by myself.
Wow.
I've always turned everything over to God. When I went into business, when I went to be a federal agent, when I went to be a policeman, when I went to the White House to work as an assistant to the President of the United States. I mean, those were difficult times. In 1968, when President Nixon took over, and I had been traveling with him, and the country was in a difficult position because many of our cities had been burned or were on fire still in 1968. As people will remember, many people in this audience, in your viewing audience, will remember that. And it was, a lot of it was left up to me in terms of what would happen in our country, in these cities, where I had worked for a number of major companies like A&P and Woolworth and Johnson Wax Company and others who owned many of the buildings, and they sold their products by the billions of dollars in these different cities. And so one of my responsibilities was to try to help get this thing back on track, to rebuild America and to help get us going in the right direction.
Well, thank you for
your
your
service. And that time, it was really a time when we were trying to make America great again. That's what we were trying to do.
Right.
And it was a lot of responsibility.
Wow.
But it made me pray harder than I'd ever prayed. It made me work harder than I'd ever worked. And doors just opened for me. And it wasn't all because I was sitting there with the most powerful man on earth, but it was because of the way that I was pushed, and I asked God for his help, and he gave it to me. I went into every office, including the most powerful bankers in the world, and got their support. I went to the chairman of General Motors, which was the largest corporation at the time in the world, and got the chairman's support, brought him into the White House, made him chairman of the committee that I set up.
Wow.
I mean, there were just all kinds of things. So what we have to do is we have to work at it. If we want a better university, if we want a better town, or city, or nation,
we have to
work at it. It doesn't, I don't care who's the president, or who is the mayor, or who is the governor. If we don't work at it and work at it hard every day for our children and our people, we're not going to have anything. And I think people want something for nothing too many times. It's not going to happen.
Wow, that's amazing, inspiring. I love it. And that reminds me of a story. So when I, was getting used to being in America, and I would listen to the great stories that you would share. And I remember a time in your life when you had left New York, you had left the security of, having a job with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you said you were coming to North Carolina, and you shared a time when it was hard to get clients because, again, you're back in the Carolinas and you're trying to, find your way, which a lot of us are going to go through. I go through it with this platform. I'm lucky to have HBU who are stepping forward. I'm lucky to have supportive people such as some of the people in my audience, but it's tough, and sometimes you have to go out and make that effort. And I love the story you told about how, you found a company that was going through crisis, so you didn't wait for them to come to you. I'm not sure if it was Woolworths, I speak under correction, but you were young and you were hungry, and I think you made your way back into, was it New York?
New York.
And you approached the receptionist and you said, I would like to speak with, one of the biggest people in the company. And the first question, he said, I would like to speak with the chairman of the board. This is young Bobby. And the receptionist is like, do you have an appointment? And you were persistent, and you stayed at that up until the point where when divine intervention happened, because you were doing the best you absolutely can, and you met the chairman without any meeting, without any introduction, and you were ready. So when the moment of opportunity showed up, you were ready, and you were able to say, I'm new in the industry, but based on what I've read in the papers about the crisis that your company is facing, here are the things that I would suggest. And you showed up. And that's something that empowers me so much, because it's hard to see sometimes that, sometimes when things are not going well, that's actually the time to act, because we want to wait until everything has been checked out, and life seldom has it that way. And that would be one of your biggest breakthroughs, where you have a big contract and where you emerge beyond that struggle of being a young black man trying to make it in segregated North Carolina.
Well, when I left my job as a federal agent in New York, being in New York was supposed to be the just being there, they
Right.
felt was the most successful thing
Right,
for me,
the
being
dream.
from High Point, North Carolina.
Absolutely.
And when I told my district supervisor that I was resigning my job
Right.
in 1961, and that I was moving back to North Carolina to go into the public relations business, he said,
Right.
I won't repeat all of what he told me, but he said some curse words.
Right.
And he said, you're an idiot.
Right.
Why are you moving back there and everything is segregated?
Right.
He said, if you got some clients, you can't even take them to a restaurant because all the restaurants are segregated.
Wow.
And I told him that something that I'll never forget. I said, Mr. Gaffney, I said, I've enjoyed my stay here in New York, but I'm going back to North Carolina. I'm going back to South. I said, I hope to be working everywhere.
Right.
But I said, I'm going back there because that's my home. I love High Point. I
Right.
love North Carolina.
Right.
And that's why I'm going back there. And I said, the second reason I'm going back there is because I'm going back there not to be a part of the problem, but to help cure the problem. I said, that's a
Wow.
problem.
Right.
And somebody's got to reach out and try to help do something about it.
Because your people needed you.
And my people needed me, and
Wow.
all my family was here, and
Right.
people that I knew and grew up with, both white and black. And I said, I'm not going to abandon my state or
Right.
my area or my city.
That's amazing.
And I came back here. I moved back here, lock, stock, and barrel.
Right.
With my late wife, and we had nothing. I mean, I think we had $500 or $600 in
Wow.
the bank, and
all of that-
I was gone in the first month.
All of that to what is now the oldest African American owned public relations company. And I mean, that is so empowering to know that as young as we are, we're not saying quit your jobs, but we are saying follow your passion, be true to yourself, because it's through that you had worked, which is a segue to our next question, having worked with people like Dr. King, President Nelson Mandela, President Richard Nixon, legendary stock investor, Mr. Warren Buffett, who is also so inspiring. It was through your staying true to the call and the dream that was calling you that you were able to meet all these people who have somehow given to your career and who you have given into their careers. And so I want to know, as a millennial, as a young person who has goals and dreams and sometimes does an exceptional job at meeting all my daily goals, and on other days, oh my God, it takes time. I want to know from you, is there a common thread that connects all these people, that connects Nelson Mandela, Dr. King, President Obama, your grandmother? What is it about people who are able to impact the world in such a positive way? And can someone as young as me, or as young as our audience members and our viewers at home, aspire to be that sort of person?
Absolutely. I think any of us can do it. I think we have to have the courage,
Right.
the grit, and we have to reach out to a higher power than ourselves. We have to realize that there's something else going on in this world, that somebody made us, that there's something going on that we many times don't understand or don't know about. But if we trust that higher power,
Right.
to work within us and to lift us up and to carry us on, and to be true to your values, not just I want to make a lot of money because I want to drive a lot of big cars and I want a great big old house and I want to. That's fine, and I have no problem with that. But that can't be your ultimate goal. Your ultimate goal has to be able to reach out and help somebody else.
Right.
I just saw that in my life coming up. My grandmother, we didn't have very much, but she shared our food. We have a big pot of pinto beans with some ham hock in it,
Pinto
and
beans.
a big pan of bread, and my grandmother would be slicing off the bread and putting
Yep.
in little old bowls, and she would tell me, Bobby, I want you to take this down to Miss Greer's house,
Wow.
because she's sick. She's an old person, and she don't have nobody to help her. And then she said, stop by over there to Miss Fannie Mae's house and give her a little food, because she doesn't have anybody, and she lost her job, and she doesn't have to eat. That's the way I grew up.
Wow.
And everything that I'm about came from those humble beginnings about giving back. Because as she told me over and over again, it doesn't belong to you.
Right.
She said, at the end of the day, nobody's going to ask you how many shiny cars you have, or how much money you have in the bank,
Right.
or how many trips you took, or how many great speeches you made, or how many great suits you have. The only thing that when you get to that gate that they're going to be asking you is, what did you do?
Right.
How much did you serve? How much did you give?
Wow.
How much did you lift up somebody else? If you can't say that, what are you going? What are you about?
Wow.
What are our institutions about? What are we about as a people?
Wow.
No matter who we are, no matter how rich we are, no matter how poor we are, or whatever, God has given each of us enough of a gift where we need to start giving it back.
Wow.
You know.
What a reality check. Profound. Thank you so much. That is truly empowering, and thank you for sharing that insight. And in closing, I have just one question, and it's related to, you are the founder of International Book Smart Foundation. Mr. Brown has shipped over 5 million books to the continent of Africa, different countries on the African continent. And you started this initiative out of pocket, not knowing that you'd ship over 5 million books. You started this initiative because you were deployed on a separate assignment in South Africa, but saw the poverty, saw the fact that there was a system called Bantu education, which meant that people of my culture, of my heritage, cannot have a better education. And so we weren't allowed to have, or my mother's generation wasn't allowed to have certain textbooks. And so you went into that environment, and I remember you telling someone else the story, and you said it made you sick to your stomach, and you just couldn't live with yourself knowing that you could come back home and, you know, find a way to get books to people who needed it in my country. And I share that because what I love about it is it literally started as an effort of smuggling textbooks into Africa. If you'd imagine apartheid South Africa with, you know, Boer and Afrikaner policemen who were strict about what are you bringing into our country. And Bob Brown, who knew what risks you were putting on your career, who knew what could go wrong, but you still came to America, fundraised, got containers that would send books. I mean, built over 300 libraries, and you were young, again, brave, courageous, and I just want you to, and I'm sure you've covered this, and I wanted to share it because I know somebody at home can be inspired by it. And at that time, it was breaking a law. There was a time in history when Nelson Mandela was on a terrorist list. There was a time in history when Martin Luther King was you know, and so I want to find out from you, you know, or if I'm thinking of this the right way, and I'm not promoting that we break rules, because that's not right. But I do think that us as millennials are born in such a unique time. One where there is the danger, of course, of social media and internet access and what that can do. But there's also an opportunity to take advantage of the resources that our parents never had to change the world for the better. And so I'm sure you would, or what would you say to encourage that young person who wants to do something that is going to go against the popular thing or go against the quote-unquote law? Again, we're not saying people should break the law, but sometimes when there's a system or a way of doing things that doesn't feel right to you, you know, is it okay to respond to that? And can we say, even if it doesn't work out the way that we think it will, or even if it doesn't work out for me the way it worked out for little Barbie, will I still come out proud of myself for listening to my intuition as young as I am?
Well, there's something about letting God use you.
Right.
I don't care whether you're rich or poor or black or white or whatever color you are, whatever you are, wherever in the world you are.
Right.
If you do that, you're gonna be on the right track, because God is never gonna use you on. He's never gonna put you on the wrong track. And if you do what the Bible says that you're supposed to do, you're gonna be on the right track about.
So you'll be all right either way.
100% of the time.
Wow.
So, you know, there are all those things about be good to those who would spitefully use you, and try to do as much good as you can every single day. When I went to South Africa and I went into the schools, in the black townships, I was appalled. I was hurt. I mean, the first time I did it, I went back to my hotel room and I could not stop crying. I said, there's something going on inside of me. And I knew it was nothing but God working with me and working inside of me.
Right.
So I came back home and I said, I am going to find some books to go in this school. So I went around to different friends and schools and got books in my truck and my cars and everything else, and rented some storage space. And then one day, a lady who was a classmate of mine who had been working at a school in Greensboro told me that, I understand that you are looking for books. She said, we got a whole warehouse full of books. You can have as many of them as you want.
Wow.
Because in America, when they change the curricula, they change the
Change
books.
so quickly.
And so there are millions of books, hundreds of millions of books lying around everywhere in America, in warehouses right now, in Gifford County, all over North Carolina, all over New York, everywhere. And there are kids who have no books, who when they get a book, they start crying. Tears just run all down their face, crying, because they have a book. And we are throwing away books. We're burning books up. I said, what kind of deal is this? I know that ain't right. So I started taking the books back. But they wouldn't let me take the books in as books. So what I did, I created another way. And what I did, I went out and got clothes and shoes from different people. And I just had a whole warehouse that I was working on that. And I'd put the books in the bottom of each box. And then I'd put clothes and shoes on top of every box of books. And then we'd seal them up, and I'd have a truck to take them to New York to put them on the South Africa Airways flight, because I got permission to bring them into South Africa. The clothes and shoes,
the clothes,
not the books. The books were illegal.
For a black child to have at the time.
At the time, they were illegal. You couldn't bring books in it. Even though the children had no books, they didn't want children to have any books. So, I ran into a little conflict there later on, but, I got through it. Because God was with me, and I was on the right side.
And you made a plan.
And I made a plan to do what I needed to do. And I knew that with God's help, that nobody could stop me. I knew that if God was with me, that there was no way that nobody could stop me. And I'm on the right track. Shoot, I went right ahead, and God opened up every door. Every door. And not only did he open some of them up, but he broke them down with the apartheid government, who was against everything. And they would come to me and say, Mr. Brown, we appreciate what you're doing. Now, they wouldn't say that publicly, but they would come to me and tell me they appreciate what I was doing.
And I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, because it shows that when your call comes, the world may not be ready, but you must be ready. And you must trust that God has instilled in you everything you will need for the journey. And as I'm learning in my own life, everything that you need also shows up, but it's your responsibility to step up, even in moments of fear, even in moments of breaking the law, being that terrorist. We're not promoting it, but some of the people who have changed the world, guys, have had to be brave, stand solid ground, and be deeply rooted and connected to their own intuition. And I am inspired, continue to be inspired by you. And I hope that our audience at home get to look at this and see that it is possible to reach and attain a great level of success, whether it's leadership, business, or even celebrity. But when we break these conversations down and transcend that aura of celebrity to the real stuff, we realize that we're all connected. We're one people with the same hopes and dreams. And so thank you so much for gracing our platform, Mr. Brown. Thank you to our viewers at home for tuning in to this special episode on mentorship and giving back.